it's necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of the station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise offend anyone, and we insist that you refrain from any such statements.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar City 90.3 for Fear No Favor. Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsyncits.com or download Simple Radio app on the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Good evening and welcome to Fear No Favor. And before I get into my program tonight, I would like to take a little time out to wish my last son happy birthday. Today is his birthday, his 12th birthday, and I really want to wish him all the best. I want to continue to admonish him to keep on the straight and narrow path, avoid confusion whenever you can. If you have to walk away, run away, crawl away, just be aware that you have to do your utmost best and exhaust all avenue of avoiding confrontation. A fight never ends, and one must be mindful that it could go on and on and on. Even when you feel that you're finished, there are persons who might not be thinking the same. The mindset might be completely different. Once you avoid it in the first place, there's no need for you to wonder how other persons are thinking, because there can be a plethora of permutations and combinations as to where it can go thereafter. So from your siblings, Newrish Nital, Anish Nital, Naliaka Nital, and of course Newrisha Nital, we're all wishing you all the best on your birthday. You just have to put off the little celebration until the weekend. when it provides us with more flexibility to do whatever we have to do for you. Now, when we take to the microphone so that our narrative would be heard in the public's domain, we have a responsibility. We are all ambassadors of our federation, and we must be mindful of what we put out there. This is not like once ago you had a Labour spokesman or the Democrat and a radio station that did not have the listenership like they're now having. So we have to be aware that we are heard all over the globe. People in England, Australia, Russia, Ukraine, Israel, England, all over the entire world, they hear us. And it is our duty to keep the narrative as such that we encourage people and our message resonate with a touristic product that persons would want to come and visit us. And maybe after that first brief visit, they might want to take it into the protracted period where we get heads in bed. Instead of just scrolling through and doing some brief visits, we would like to do whatever we have to do to get them to come and stay over. Because, of course, the stay over would generate revenue and it would contribute to putting bread on everybody's table, whether directly or indirectly. So the onus is on us, especially those of us who get behind mics, various radio station, podcasts, whatever medium we use to get out the message to the general public. We must be mindful that we have a country to preserve. Politicking and selfishness, those things must not be on the radar. Just do what we have to do as patriots. And I think that it would put our country in good standing. Some of us have ulterior motive and we create our narrative along that pathway. Some of us are stuck with a single narrative and ill afford the public any variety. But even in your quest to do that, we must make certain that our country is at the nucleus of that narrative, trying to attract people, good people, to our shores. Now, there was an incident at a school, and as a result of that, to err on the side of caution, the government, maybe through the Minister of Education, the Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, they made a decision to let the students and teachers stay away from the Sadler's Secondary School after allegedly someone might have taken a weapon, an undeserved, unwelcome object on the school compound. I would like to suggest that if we are not absolutely certain as to what that object or those objects were, then we do a little investigative journalism, ascertain what they were, and find the best possible way to get out the news. It's very difficult at times to balance the preservation of our lovely federation and to put information out there that would increase the listenership of your chosen medium. So, whatever transpired, wisdom prevailed, and the students and teachers were asked to stay away from school for the rest of today. They indicated that they do not know as yet whether or not this would be extended to Friday, and they would have to learn virtually. But we have to be mindful too that I don't think every student has a laptop or computer. So when we say that, we're asking those who have the flexibility to utilize the platform and engage themselves in meaningful discourse while they are away from school for their own safety. It is a very unwelcome interruption of school, but necessary, because if you look at it, those who have exams, 60 exams coming up, we are now in November. After November, we have December, January, February, March, April, May. So technically, there are only about 6 more months to get prepared to do your CXC examinations. We know the distractions that would come along in December, being that unique matrimony of Christmas and Carnival in our federation. And therefore, that distraction could also dilute your preparation. It is not all of us who can resist getting involved in social activities, despite the pressures placed on you to complete your syllabus for the various subjects. We, our friends, can be very influential in putting us in situations where we ought not to be. So we do not cope properly with people trying to distract us. Normally we would give in. Some of us just don't have the discipline at all to resist those temptations. So it's a very unwelcome distraction or interruption to the teachers who have to impart the content of the various syllabus. Now, people might take that particular incident to be trivial, but we are glued to our television, where a lot of our programming is centered around the American culture. And we would have seen in very recent times, we have mass shootings at our schools, and at times you have many innocent lives being lost. Some of us do not think before we act. We couldn't care less about the ramifications thereafter. We just do what we have to do. But I believe that it is time that, even if we have to count to 1 million, let us do it. Because there are always consequences, dire consequences at times, when things like that would happen. You could traumatize students of this school who might be pleading to their parents not to allow them to go back to that school. Not that it is something that might be continued, but when you're in a state of apprehension, your mind would transcend the entire spectrum of various possibilities. Very, very unfortunate. And we're hoping that things can be resolved and reconciliation would be had, and we can return to proper schooling come Monday. But this is a suggestion as well that security would have to be improved on our school compounds. And I'm not talking about somebody you just give a job to sit down by a gate and maybe search people back. They themselves will get fed up of that, and the system will just lapse very often. Some people might feel it might be a little bit too military like to have some soldiers placed at our high schools, because there is where the problem seems to be. And we have to work tirelessly to bring about calm and confidence in our schools. The debate will continue. Does it look good to see a soldier parading the school compound? What type of weapon should that person have? And I think sometimes we have to forget about the perception and deal with the reality. Something has to be done. And tough times call for drastic decisions. Those who are opposing the current administration would put all sort of twists on it. That is not necessary. Our main concern as citizens and patriots of the Federation is to ensure a conducive learning environment. Regardless of what people would say, whatever is safest for the students, we got to utilize that. Regardless of how long it might have to go on for, we have to do what we have to do. I can recall going to Guatemala to compete in university games, track and field. And every step I made, you had at least two soldiers with machine guns. At that time, I don't know if they had social unrest, but I didn't see any fighting taking place. But the soldiers then were everywhere. That was sustained security. Each geographical location would be able to contextualize the affairs and know what would be best. We cannot let situations spiral out of control and then try to deal with it all at once. It would not go down so well. We have the government. Government is taking measures to try and deal with youngsters, I think under 18, under 16, under 18, that when they get into trouble, when they offend the law in any way, they're trying to establish an intervention before passing on these juveniles to the justice system. In other words, before taking them to court, they're setting up a system where things can be looked after in as much as it's pragmatic before they could tell the police, so this is beyond us and this is what you have to do what you have to do. And that is where that delicate equilibrium would come from. Because some students, very smart students, who have their ears to the ground on the street, They know about these stuff. And they're aware that police might come around but would not take them down to the station, have them incarcerated or placed in a cell on the bench. They're quite aware that measures are in place not to do that. So sometimes we might have to revisit things that we anticipated could have been in place and maybe nip those things in the bud in order to let the young people know that there are consequences to their actions. If you're going to be the biggest brawler or the biggest bully doing people things in school, and police officers will be telling you that they are instructed to leave it up to the school, a lot of things are taking place at school that ought not to be taking place at school. And if you're going to empower, so to speak, the bullies them, that after creating confusion, they would just be suspended for a very limited period of time and then come back to school. I think something we have to go beyond that. Take each case on its own merit and see how best we can take action that would deter furtherance of those sort of behavior. Everybody would not take physical harm to their children the same way. Some people will just lose it. So when you think you're just beating up somebody's child at a school or on a school compound, you don't know what will transpire the next day. You don't know what plans persons have. You don't even know what the student himself or herself might be planning. And they might not want to go to any authority because they want to exact their own revenge because they feel that way. You have people calling them punk and calling them all sorts of names whenever they have to go to the authority to try and resolve issues. So what they do, take it into their own hands. And even though they might be punished to some extent thereafter, they don't mind that because such is the punishment. So we have to get that equilibrium at our schools where there is a possibility of being punished. Some people would have suggested take them down to the station, put them in a cell, let the parents come to collect them, and then you take measures to let the parents them feel it in their pockets. 50,000, 40,000, 10,000, whatever you think is appropriate for the particular incident to act as a deterrent, you have to use it. You have a lot of single parent homes, and already those mothers are under pressure. So when you further punish the mother, I mean, 4 square meal could turn into one triangular meal, and then maybe just a line segment meal because you take in limited funds to create a penalty. Maybe within that context, it might send us clear message because these students are getting wiser and wiser. They are quite aware. I mean, some of them telling you they ain't afraid any police. They're telling you that. So if they're very stoic or indifferent about police officers or law enforcement officers, then how can they be reined back in and create some semblance of comfort and conducive environment for people to learn? How can we do that? And you see, maybe this is a message too, because clearly at times when you examine the reason for an altercation, you can't make any sense out of it. You who have a more level head will suggest that it's something very trivial and could have been addressed in short notice and to a conclusion as well. But then that is not the case. A lot of the students lack coping skills. They are being pressured. And to make matters worse, this marijuana issue, some people might not like to hear it, but that too is a major problem. We have a lot of young people smoking marijuana. And I didn't say using, I said smoking. And we'll have to see how best we can protect that vulnerable part of our population, the young, the under 21. Some claim 16, but I really believe that persons must not be smoking marijuana in terms of striking a balance, maybe for the 25. We had the research, we had the outcomes, CNN and those places, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, and many other researchers. They would have indicated the danger of subjecting the young minds to marijuana at too early a stage in their development. We are told that throughout the Caribbean region, and maybe St. Kitts is no exception, that there is an increase in marijuana-induced psychosis. And something would have to be done before we go and free up, so to speak, this marijuana. We have to take measures to safely secure that aspect of our population. It's a concern. Yes, all the economics and everything that seems so promising, that would have to take second fiddle. In the meantime, our preference scale would have to be recalibrated so that some priority be given to our young men and women. Some people might not want to hear it, but it's overindulgence in marijuana smoking going to put it at a place where we can't afford to be. It might be very difficult to come out of. Very, very, very difficult. We cannot allow economics to just cloud our minds. Even if we have to postpone whatever economics potential that can be realized, even if you have to postpone that for a while, even if you have to go back to the IMF, put back our affairs in the hands of the IMF to save our young people, we have to do that. Postpone the economic potentials that we are trying to materialize for a bit. Put more focus on what is happening. And if persons are being real and honest, they will let you know that there is an increase of marijuana usage in our secondary schools. The potency of marijuana would have gone up many folds within the past 20 years. The potency, the strength of it. And sometimes what is troubling is that we are still hearing of persons who are trying to import marijuana. Even though the government would have created some flexibility for some persons to say we plant a number of plants in your yard and imbibing what? Do whatever you have to do, but this is the limit. Persons still prefer or still opting to bring marijuana into the country. And the problem with that is sometimes they have to add a chemical to the marijuana that they're importing in order for it to not be detected by sniffer dogs. And you know that embalming fluid that they use on dead bodies to assist in the preservation, formaldehyde. That is what they're using to try and throw off the sniffers. Now, when that there comes through, having deceived everybody and makes it destiny, journey throughout our communities, that formaldehyde makes it the marijuana is very, very dangerous. And we have to be careful. Sometimes as a government or an administration at the helm of government, it is not always about re-electability, because you can do something that a lot of persons did not really embrace, but you still get re-elected. Because when people take time out, serious time out, to consider the actions that they may be considered at their displeasure, a lot of it will be reversed. When they get to understand the relevance of doing certain things, they will be right back in your corner. Right back in your corner. We have to do what we have to do to salvage what is left of our vulnerable population of young people. And you would have heard from the research that when you start smoking marijuana before the age of 21, there is 4 times a greater probability of you suffering from marijuana-induced psychosis. Acting out your head then, let us put it in simple terms. And that, they claim, is irreversible. Once it happens to you, it is very difficult, regardless the extent that the therapy you might be introduced to. It is very difficult for you to catch back yourself. They say, if you start smoking marijuana before the age of 21, there is a very high probability, 4 times probability of you experiencing cannabis-induced psychosis. Fancy words, just to say that you're not acting right. Your equilibrium would have been disturbed, and it might be disturbed in a irreversible reaction. At one time, the scientists were telling us that the brain is not fully developed before the age of 25. They would have come back sometime last year and told us that it is now 30, that the brain is not fully developed before the human hits the age of 30. Well, how come all those facts out there, those scientific findings out there, and we don't want to be guided by them? We were guided by them during COVID. A lot of us, a lot of persons lined up to take the vaccination. We were guided by them when the benefits of marijuana had to be established and documented. We are guided by that. All the various diseases and ailments and mishaps that marijuana presumably could cure or or mitigate against. We utilize science at our convenience. Nobody, people are no longer, when they're engaging in marijuana smoking, to tell a certain member of the society, especially if you know the upbringing and the parents and the relatives, that look, you gotta go away from here. Your parents them would not allow that. That they don't break down long time. Maybe buried. Nobody caring for anybody when they know for a fact that that is not a common practice or welcome practice within a particular family. And sometimes when some of these persons would have added supplemental stuff to the marijuana and somehow they're caught in quicksand, like jog quicksand. You're in there and you're wiggling and you can't come out. That is where some of them want you to be. In the cannabis quicksand. They don't want to hear addiction, so you're going to call it quicksand. You're in there and you can't come out. The more you wiggle, the deeper you sink. And a lot of them who are marketing this stuff see it as a sustainable economic activity. They have to try to see how they could maintain their market. And even when you would have dropped from being 100% you to just 10% you, they're still flooding you with the same substance that would have caused your destruction or your degradation. Because once they get the $10 and the $20 and the $50, they don't care. To hell with you. You're my permanent market. No love. No love for your family, your friend, your associate, your community member. All you want is to have your lot of $5 note and $10 note, and you couldn't care less. A man would go move a mountain just to get $10 or $15 to buy a spliff. They'll wash down 40 cars just for $10. And some of us around don't have any conscience. We know precisely what's going on with the people, but they could still produce certain type of work. And you're willing to work them like horses and give them the $10 because they're going to find their supplier. We have always been creating that very dangerous pathway. And up to now, some were created and are well preserved. Some were created and seemingly not so well preserved. So then additional stuff is being added to restructure the preservation of the economic activity. We can't do that. Our own brothers and sisters, I mean, if you want to use it for your own pleasure and your, so to speak, your high, man, do it and leave out other people now. Do it and leave out other people. And even if you see it as a medication, your medication can be mine. I might need 2 grams of X 3 times a day. You might need 50 grams per day, 50 grams of X 10 times per day. We are all uniquely constructed in our physiological being. That is why some people are allergic to certain medication, and the substitutes or alternative derivatives would have to be used. But we have to come back to the state of loving our brothers and sisters. We cannot be so indifferent that even the younger part of society being so unproductive or underproductive, we just embracing that. But if we embrace the younger part of our society being super underproductive, where Social Security is going to get their contributions from. Because as much as people like to say that marijuana never kill anybody yet, they have things that people would have done after consuming marijuana that might have caused their death. What if marijuana makes you lazy, sleepy, and takes away your appetite? You could be malnourished, you could be undernourished, you could be underproductive. Where Social Security is going to be sustained when persons who are supposed to be a part of the relay, they are unproductive. And they couldn't care about working either. We have a kind of friendly society where a man mightn't like you, but he see you struggling to get a piece of bread and cheese, and he will help you with the bread and cheese. And there are some persons who feel, well, if they can do that on a regular enough basis, they go by X to get it. Next time they go by Y, they go by A, they go by B. So they have something for every day of the month as to where they're going to go to get that piece of bread and cheese. And as far as they're concerned, that is sufficient because they have been kept alive with that habit or that practice. They don't want anything extra. So if they were to get sick, there is nothing as cushion to protect them against unforeseen contingencies. There are some people literally, I mean, we could only live one day at a time. But then we wise, we plan and we try to create generational wealth. But some people make up their minds that at the end of the day, the stomach had food in it, and they wake up the next day ready to go again and become masters of their bad habits. But like I always tell people, a bad habit is like a soft and comfortable bed, easy to get into and hard to get out of. We have to start caring about each other. And the government, the administration in government now, they have a major role to play. They have to make up their minds whether they are going to put some circuit breakers with the freeing up of this marijuana. And they have to be honest with themselves. Are we truly using this marijuana as for medicinal purposes, or it is 99% recreational and 1% medicinal? There might be some inherent benefits to be had even though you're using it as recreational. But the intention, the mindset is not to get any medicinal anything. is to get a one thing they call a high. I just want to relax. Burn up my spliff 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And sometimes it's the inexperienced smokers who are utilizing this marijuana to such an extent. Maybe if you're going to free it up, you have to have education, you have to educate the potential users. Say, yes, we don't mind you smoke, but this is the way it's supposed to be done, given the potency of the marijuana. We don't even have a brand to call ours. You know, we have multi-purpose lab, we have agro-processing. You hear about different grades, the purple hazy, this, that. They come from wherever they came from. We might have to establish a particular grade for us. So when we get our dispensaries, we know how to package that particular grade. The doctors who study in that, because not any doctor could give you any prescription to go by the dispensary to pick up no marijuana, you know, because they're not qualified. It would be unethical for them to do that when they don't have a clue about the dosage that they're subjecting you to. They don't have a clue as to how much marijuana is needed for ailment B. They don't have a clue as to what dosage they have to use for what extent of relief. So if we're going to get into it, we got to prepare ourselves on a wholesome basis. Doctors we have here, they can't do it. It is unethical for you to operate, give prescription for something that you're not qualified to do. I agree already that even the doctors who we have, and they recommend medication for you, the dosage, sometimes it's a guessing game. Because everybody unique. So you give Peter, and Peter recovered from the 50 milligrams twice a day for 2 weeks. Then he says Susan gonna do the same thing, different physiological makeup. So to some extent, there's a guessing game. And after sufficient experience, you would know, well, Susan might be able to do the same thing like Peter. But Shirley down here, she had similar symptoms like Susan. And even though each person is unique, Susan is similar to Shirley. So I guess I recommend or prescribe the same thing that I prescribe for Susan, for Shirley. And you feel it out and you feel it out. Well, if you had to do that with so much documented treatments all about, based on the cases, so many cases all about. Well, if we don't have the cases for the marijuana, how can you prescribe? Tried to talk to a young man one time and he told me he gonna smoke until he smoke off his head. Well, if what you're doing is so great and so beneficial, why would you have to smoke off your head? And we know what they mean when they say smoke off their head. Till they behave as if they lost a school. We have to recalibrate our preference scale, get that vulnerable part of our population that we have to depend so much on for our future benefits. Because they ain't putting in money in Social Security for their own benefit, you know. They're putting in money in Social Security for those who came before them could benefit. Now, these who are supposed to be putting in, You have others behind who are supposed to come and put in for them to benefit. But if there's a void, an ocean void, what are we going to do? You might get the contribution, Social Security, you might invest the accumulated contributions because part of the act said that they could invest the monies that they pick up. So imagine you pick up the monies people getting. Well, a lot of that money would go out in sick benefit. A lot of person might have to be medically boarded. Some people don't want to talk the reality, but those are various permutations and combinations of possibilities. Sometimes we just have to take out the economics out of it and focus on what is left. And we must not compromise and sacrifice too much to bring about the desired economics effect. I agree that if we get an industry that is under control, just like St. Vincent is not a part of they do not have a CBI program, and they seem to be doing pretty well because they are way, way ahead of us with respect to developing a marijuana industry. Yes, our aim would be to bring down the percentage of the gross domestic product that the CBI contributes to. Maybe if we could come down to around 20, 25, 30, and we have other stuff bringing in the other 75, 70, that will provide us with a breath of fresh air. But that would have to be constructed. I put up something the other day where I was saying you have to deconstruct and then reconstruct to give whatever the output be a good texture in moving forward, securing our future. We have to do what we have to do. Let us take a break and come back. Welcome back to Fear Now Favor. We we have come to realize that budget time is coming up where the appropriation bill where you work out how much money is going to be given to various ministries, departments, and the likes. And it is a nice thing to see that consultation with the general public is taking place out in the community environment. Instead of waiting for that grand occasion where the debates will take place, maybe you have some discussion in cabinet amongst the ministers and junior ministers, and then you come out in parliament to have your debate with government, the administration, representatives, and the opposition. It is nice. I looked at a bit of it and I realized that some of the presentations involving graphs, the best of us didn't cope so well with graphs in school, whether quadratic, a graph in physics, a graph in chemistry. A lot of us didn't cope so well. And I looked at a presentation being made or explanation being given with the construction of graphs, maybe on the same axis to give you a comparative analysis. Now, there are some people who can hold on to that. Some people can hold on to that. And maybe the same persons who used to follow Parliament, those are the same persons who might be able to hold on to what you're trying to disseminate at that point in time with the graphs. I feel, though, that things can be broken down even more because you have people coming out, persons of differing capacities or abilities, and you want to bring it down to their level as much as possible. And maybe the ministers, the representatives, could be taking some notes because persons have concerns, but not everybody would have a good verbal dexterity to convey what they want to say. And we must not ridicule anybody. Give them a chance to express themselves, express their concerns, even make suggestions. And even though the suggestion might not be top tier, something could be had, a sense can be made of what they're trying to get across. And then the think pool would be able to explicate what the super common person, let me put it that way, was trying to put across, and maybe effectuate what they were perceiving can be done. We have to make sure that these sessions, they're very welcome. But anybody who is there should not feel paranoid about putting out their ideas to the ministers and those responsible for eventually creating that appropriation bill. Just embrace everybody. Just like election time, you embrace everybody with this budget. Everybody would benefit differently from whatever budget is produced. Some people benefit as a result of the country as a whole benefiting. Some people benefit directly from a personal perspective. Some people benefit as a result of family members benefiting, and then some being passed on to them. So there are many angles where persons can benefit. And if someone is essaying to explain that, look, we need a little bit more of this, a little less of that, more of that, whatever adjustments can be made to on an average, because you cannot meet the needs of everybody. But collectively, from an average perspective, you could say we heard that we had about 100 people there, and out of the 100, 55 of them basically were talking about ABC. How best can we make adjustments to ensure that an average day of 55 persons, our concentration of 55 persons, feel a little bit more satisfied with the requests, concerns, suggestions. It is not an easy game. That is why politicians we got to keep their ears to the ground. What shall we prioritize at this point in time? Something you just got to recalibrate. Something you had to provide things that you did not even budget for. Once you keep your ears to the ground, you'll be able to be in tune with the cry, the silent screams of people. So the public debates or consultation with respect to the budget is an excellent, eximious idea. Excellent. But the language must facilitate the understanding by the persons who are turning out. You must have an idea who your audience would be. You can't see an accountant over there and an economist over there and you're eyeballing them because it's as if you're talking to just the two of them. You got to try to embrace everybody. And I think that they would go even better. And something you got to engage. Even though we are in charge and you are the authority on something, you got to be a little more interactive. Presentations at times a bit too formal. Make them a little bit more interactive. You say something, you even ask a question. You think we really need an extra $10,000 in the area of farming? What aspect of farming? Agro processing, this, that. You have a little conversation. And all you have to do is learn to control the conversation. But we cannot be too paternalistic when we're out there on this budget consultation. We can't be pushing things on people's throats. You push a little bit, you get the understanding, you get whether or not they embrace it, and then you incrementally push again, push again. So eventually you might end up pushing the whole thing because you must surge it into the minds and understanding of those who attended. You can't shove it down people's throat and bully them into understanding. We shall not be too overly paternalistic when we're having our budget consultations. You want people to feel free to be a part of the process. That is why you were sitting there in the first place. Be a little more interactive. Maybe at times we try to push too much on the table. Just put on sufficient, given the time frame that you don't work out, you utilize. And you elaborate, you enunciate, you articulate. Make sure people understand. Make sure you understand, the people understand you. We have to be careful when we have consultation. Consultation doesn't mean you're going to talk down to people. I'm not saying for a single moment that that is happening, but I'm saying with communication, you must not appear to be talking down to people. Use simple language. It doesn't make you any less if you're to use very, very simple language. And the people understand you than to appear to be well educated and using words that they do not understand. Doesn't make sense. Bring it down. You should see yourself as an ABC advocate when you go out to have consultation. Simple ABC. I can recall when I first went out to university, I had an English professor, boasting and pompous. I don't see we're going to have a crash here or there, even though I was a very quiet person. He said he hired a plumber to do some work for him, and don't care how he tried, he couldn't get the plumber to understand what he was saying. You see, communication is opposed to education, educational achievement, supposed to afford you the flexibility to come down if you have to come down, to communicate, to go up if it is appropriate for you to go up, or even go up higher based on your audience. But you must have that flexibility. That is what being highly educated is all about. Flexibility. So when he said that he couldn't get the plumber to understand what he was saying because he using highfalutin language, you know, you're going to be brave as usual. I'm a kitchen. I said, did you get the plumbing job done that you actually wanted? He said, no. He couldn't understand what I was telling him. I said, you dug your own grave. And his eyes them start to wide out, and I think he was from Jamaica, Peter Lashley. I think he used to be part of one of the governments in Jamaica. And I said, no. He said he did not educate himself to bring himself down to any body level. So whatever it was he used, and you don't know them, you just stay behind. But not when you're seeking services from somebody. Because the reality is that, once ago, persons who really had these skills, they spend so much time mastering their skills that the least they were concerned about is communicating effectively via English. You put that there, you put that there, bring that, bring that, bring that. They get the job done, perfect, everything working well. They didn't spend so much time. And you see, sometimes in school too, persons in the higher classes, the authorities them did not subject them to acquire skill. That there was for those who were down in the 4 and the 5 and the 6 and the 7 and the 8. Came out to be skillful persons. Skill acquisition is now one of the best things that could happen to an individual. So if you really want to learn, you got to do a hybridization of the written academics and develop a skill. So he didn't get his service done. He said he didn't educate himself, spending money educating himself to bring himself down to anybody else's level. I said someday you might meet somebody who is more intelligent and more knowledgeable than you are. He said, unlikely, but a little possibility. He pumped us and he's saying, getting on. And I could see he wasn't really enjoying the resistance that I put up against him for not entertaining or communicating more effectively with the plumber. I said, St. Kitts is a lovely place. We have a good lot of touristic products. A lot of things happening in St. Kitts. A place that you would love. Suppose after graduation I would have invited you there and you were to meet a man named Paul Southwell and you're driving across Keon Street and this gentleman there flagging you down and being a nice gentleman as you are, and putting some sarcasm. You pulled over and you try to listen what the gentleman had to say. And when you wind down the glass, he said to you that your cylindrical object, which rotates in a series of succession, has been deflated. What would you do? He said, what? And I took my time and I said, your cylindrical object, which rotates in a series of succession, has been deflated. And he looked a bit puzzled. I said, he was simply trying to tell you that you can't tell your puncture. He said, well, I think he's an ass. I said, okay. I said, the same way the plumber might have thought of you. And the class get up and they start to roar and he feel bad. So I done make up my mind for a hard time for this man with him in my English class. But I couldn't care. People got to understand, they got to empathize with people. You're not the brightest in the world. However bright you be, there are other persons brighter than you, more intelligent than you, more knowledgeable. Academic achievement is just to afford you flexibility. Based on the context and your audience, you got that flexibility. It's no use giving a lecture when nobody understanding what you're saying. You got to be diplomatic as well. They say diplomacy is the art of telling a man go to hell in such a way that they look forward to that trip. We have to learn to communicate, and to effectively do that, you have to have an idea of your audience. Unless if you just eyeballing, certain individuals, you're going to automatically construct your narrative with them in mind. So let us be accommodating. Forget about the 10 and 40 O levels and the 4, 5, and 10 degrees. And the thing is, so politics is local, and your budget must look after these people amply in the local environment in which you have to operate. So we're going to give it our best shot. Congratulations to the current administration for taking such initiative, but just don't be too paternalistic. Adjust your conversation based on your audience. Be a little more interactive. Don't go out there to make presentations to bore people. Interactive, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And massage what you have to massage into them. Massage what you have to massage out of them. And I think that you can say hip hip hooray, we had a great night. Let us take a break. Acknowledge. Ready? Welcome back to Fear Now Favor. Now, the consumers, I think that Dr. Douglas introduced, I think it was also passed, a bill to better assist consumers, protect them, guide them, and offer some support. Particular aspect that I was rather impressed with was the expiration date on a lot of the perishable goods that some of these supermarkets don't pay keen attention to. They said that they were going to have officers, field officers, who would go to the various supermarkets and do the inspection, make the observation, do the inspection, and whatever had to be pulled from the shelves because they are expired, they would be taken down, placed in a container, whether a box, whatever container might be available at the time, and they would have a special seal so they can seal those containers. Some people might say if they don't seal it, the authorities at the supermarket can go back in and put back some of those goods on the shelves. And that is true. But I think they went on further to say that they'll be documented. Whatever code they would have to use. But I find something though, even though you're taking on those stuff, you might have gone a week, 2 weeks, 3 days, 4 days after the goods would have expired. So maybe I would like to suggest that having taken down the goods, because you went there and you met the goods them on the shelves, you take down whatever code, whatever batch those particular items might have been a part of, and you go public and you ask persons who would have consumed products from batch 45XYZ, you can come to the Consumers Affairs compound office and bring proof that you would have purchased these goods. And of course, if they fell outside the expiration date, then further action could be had, because you might go and meet 100 tins of sardine, for example, and they might have expired. So they might have had even 25 that were already sold in recent times to consumers. And usually people buy those goods to put them in the cupboards, keep them for a while, they don't use all one time. And you put out the information. And like Dr. Douglas was saying, education is key. You have to know what you are buying. So if you become more intimate with what you are buying, then you'll be aware that there might be an occasion when you have to provide proof as a manifestation that you would have purchased that particular item past the expiry date. Because not everybody who shops peruse the labels and the other information on the item that they are purchasing. Not everybody. And we have to admit too, some persons go to supermarket. We are not 100% literate. The percentage might be high, but you may still have these persons who are not literate enough to understand what the cans or the tins, whatever they have on. Or some persons might have gone shopping without their glasses. They could see that that is a tin of sardine, yes, but they cannot see the further ones of instructions or information on those tins. And that is where we have to take it further and find out if anyone would have purchased. Because you would have your receipt, and they indicated that the receipt supposed to have on in-depth information. What you purchase, what is the name of it, when you purchase it, and the name of the business where the items were purchased. I think this is a wake-up call. But the funny thing about us is that we pay attention to these things for a short period of time and then we just lapse. How how many times you would have heard that every single item that is offered for sale in the supermarkets or elsewhere supposed to be priced. Sometimes you don't know anything about the price of something until you go up. Sometimes they might have a price on the shelf and they would have already rearranged the items on the shelf so they are not in sync. They lack harmonization. There's no unison between the price of the item and the item being displayed. And it is frustrating that everyone has a budget. And you go to the cashier with your basket or your trolley and you start to put out stuff only to realize put back that, put back that, put back that because your budget doesn't have the strength to shoulder that financial obligation. It is embarrassing if you had the prices on the items. Some persons are now shopping with calculators. Some persons are quick in their head, mental arithmetic. But regardless of whether calculator or adept at mental arithmetic, you have to have the prices to add. Very unfortunate. Sometimes you don't even know how much you're putting in. Sometimes you get a receipt and you're not certain. You just got go right down from here to St. Martin. A long piece of paper, go. No specification as to what the grocery item was. We need to really shake up these people. Shake them up. And we have to be aware too that even if you have carnation milks or any tinned commodity and they have an expiration date of maybe December 15, 2023. However, in handling the items, the tin got dented. The expiration date is no longer the 15th of December. As a matter of fact, anything that is dented ought to be removed from the shelves with immediate effect, if not sooner. Because each tin has in a lining, an inert lining, inert meaning that it would not react with the content inside of that tin. So the expiration date is calculated on that. How much could the lining endure over what period of time before it start to deteriorate? Now, even if this is January and the expiration date is 10 months away, but that tin is dented, the lining in most cases, would be broken, and then the substance you have inside of the tin would react with the material underneath of the lining and could create a poisonous situation for the consumer. Some people like to go in supermarkets, and these supermarket owners are really something else, you know. They would have quite a number of dented tins, and if the price is $4, they say going at $2.50, going at $2, with the same expiration date as those that are not dented. Well, even if they put down the thing to $1 instead of $15, it doesn't stop or reduce the probability that as a result of the dent and the broken lineage, that the reaction can't occur. And what make it worse is that you might pick up so much because you find them cheaper. They're cheaper because the owners them know for a fact that they shouldn't be selling those stuff. And you might pick up a few that it might take you an extended or protracted period of time to utilize. And the time would continue to go while the chemical reactions taking place in the tins, the containers, and increasing the probability of you getting sick, whether poisoned or whatever, from that dented commodity. So it's not just expiration date. Expiration date could be 7 months later or whatever. You have to look at the condition of the commodities containers that they are held in. You have to do that. And then there's a situation where you might be pricing the items, like saying you got to price everything. And if you make to put down $44 for an item, and somehow it has $4.40, some people claim that it is the law that you have to get the item at whatever price is on it. I would have to do some reading with respect to the law when come to that. Because you don't expect to go up TDC Hartsford's and see a refrigerator that's supposed to cost 4,400, and somehow you only see 400 and get that refrigerator for 400. So it would take some digging and better understanding as to could you really get it at the price that was on it instead of the price that it's supposed to be. I've seen some persons got through, but not with anything major. So we have to wonder where the law stands with that. Maybe if the guy Queeley and Dr. Douglas would present themselves somewhere again, that question could be asked. But I think that we're doing well. And I was formulating a question in my mind as to where the environmental health officers come in. But I think that it was explained by both Dr. Douglas and I think it's Mr. Queeley, his name is, that after they do the isolation and take things from the shelf, they would have to leave them there, work in unison with the environmental health department, and they would have the authority to remove the items from the compound. The initial officer has the authority to take them from the shelves, but then it is the environmental health officer, I think down there is controlled by Alex Riley. Those guys would do what they have to do and remove them. But one has to be careful because a lot of these businesses are insured. Sometimes items come damaged, and that is a particular concern because you have friends and you have friends, and people do things and they do things. Now, if you have a container came in with mini ribs, for example, and for some reason there was seepage of water somewhere, and the freezer did not hold up so well, and a few cases of the mini ribs got damaged to the extent that they are not fit for consumption. The health inspector is supposed to be summoned to the area along with the insurance company because you might insure with, say, the Lil Warwin, some other insurance who are reinsured by Lloyd's in England. So they would call the claims adjuster from the insurance company, and they're supposed to go and accompany the environmental health officer. And you go and you witness how many cases and to what extent the damages were. You put in an estimate, you drop your documents, and you send it off to Lloyd's, and Lloyd's would have the supermarket or the business reimbursed. We we would pay, the insurance company would pay, and then the insurance company will now send off the pertinent documentation to Lloyd's, and Lloyd's would reimburse the insurance business and sink it. But something you have people colluding. You understand? You might just have 3 or 4 cases of the mini ribs that were damaged. But then some people are wicked enough to want the entire container with the mini ribs to be condemned and declared unfit for human consumption. So we have to be very careful. The persons who we send out, they must be trustworthy. They must have integrity. You can, in a businessman, pay you off to say that a whole container mini ribs. And the thing is that you don't have to take a picture each package. You just take pictures of some to accompany your file when you're sending off the information to get reimbursed. But you might see something with 30 pictures of 30. They're going to show you the 300 of them. And then you send off and you get your reimbursement. But some people play games, and you have to be mindful of that. You got to do your work honestly. Don't let business people set you up. And sometimes what happens too is that you might have declared items as unfit for consumption. You condemn them, but still reach on the shelves of those business places, and maybe at a reduced price. You must not collude with any business to put condemned items that are considered to be unfit for human consumption, to put it on any shelf, in any country, in any village, in any community, for consumption or for sale to people at a considerably reduced price. You should not collude to do that. It is being dishonest and deceptive. And maybe throughout the years, things like that might have happened. Persons might have more integrity now. Or persons might be caught with their pants down, be caught in a sort of pressurizing situation and in need of some money. And they sacrifice and they compromise their integrity and do what they have to do. So that is something that would have to be carefully looked upon. And there must be places where they backcheck each other. No one person must be ultimately accountable. There must be a group of persons because a single individual is easy to corrupt than if you have a group. Mind the possibility exists that all of them could collude and do something. But then the probability might be a little less if you have a nice, honest person in between and the other four can pull him into the collusion. So there are many things that we would have to examine. Not only in the supermarkets, people selling you items that they advertise should work in a particular way. And when you take home the item, it cannot come up with 50% of the service it's supposed to provide you with. You have to work out who would be liable. Because if you're importing stuff from overseas, the person who's selling them here, since they're not manufactured here, the person would act as a middleman to the manufacturer, distributors, to the retailer here who is selling to the ultimate consumer. So you must be able to put in your claim. You can't tell somebody about non-refundable. The law got to look into that. Non-refundable, what do they mean by that? Money had to come by. You can't tell somebody about non-refundable. And that is why cricket took a long time to catch itself in St. Kitts. Because when Kerry Packer was here, persons went out in numbers, had up their umbrellas, shading them against the heat of the sun. And then rain started to come. So the umbrellas now gone from protecting you from the heat of the sun to protecting you from the rain that was falling. The rain fell overwhelmingly, and the match was not played, could not be played. And a lot of persons did not get back their monies. When you read on the ticket, they have non-refundable. So your money gone like that. Ain't supposed to be. I mean, a government supposed to have persons coming here selling tickets to locals and has on anything about being non-refundable. That is how society that get angry. Can't take people's scarce money and carry pack up with all those stars playing. The price was substantial. I can tell people non-refundable. They have some business places like to do that too. You want a fan, you go purchase a fan. When you go home, the fan not working, I work today and would not work tomorrow. They try to find all kind of reasons to put the blame on you. What did you plug it up to? What did you do? What did you? And all that sort of, as if you're a technician. If you know you're selling items where there is a good probability that the common man, the consumer, might not be able to follow the instructions in setting up the item to get the services that were intended, then you get a technician to go out with the persons, the consumer, and set up the item. You can't say you set it up wrong and this happened and that. No, you can't do that. That should not be legal. You send out your technician, hire a technician, you're making sufficient money to hire a technician to assist in the setting up of the item. You set it up on your own, next thing something would go wrong. Or something you could have 15 new fans. And one of them had a defect. Not because it's new. You could have a defect in 1 out of 100, 1 out of 2,000. and you, the unfortunate consumer, would have purchased that one with defect. Then you go home, it's not working, and all kind of style they cutting on you. You go for your refund, they don't want to refund you your money. They're taking you round and round and throughout the whole store for you to substitute something to the value of the money that they have for you. Sometimes you gotta get angry. I don't want anything else. I wanted a fan. Why do you want to pressure me into buying something else that I do not want? You don't give back money? No, that can't work. That can't work, man. You can't ask me to take another item because you're not refunding me. And the money gone in a crab hole, a rabbit hole, can't come back out? No. And those are things that the law would have to look into as well. Refunding people for items where there is not another a similar item to give to the individual. Okay, you want to refund. You have $150 for somebody. The item you're suggesting only costs 40 something dollars. How much of that item they must purchase in order to have no net loss? Yeah, the laws would have to catch up with people like that. Too many stores taking advantage of people. And the quality of stuff that they're selling. The warranty. And they're now charging you, you know. You gotta buy something, you gotta pay an extra price. Extra cost just in case. Or you gotta buy the warranty period from them. There's no warranty on that. Or you could be selling people items with no warranty on them. The item must last 6 months, tell me. A year, tell me. 2 years, tell me. And even sometimes, when the item malfunctions within the prescribed warranty period, they don't want to look after you. They give you a headache. They embarrass you. They discourage you, so you give up. And the warranty period has not elapsed. Those are stuff that would need to be looked into. Have to be looked into. And another issue with some of these supermarkets, they sell goods, grapes, fruits that were treated with chemicals, and they put them up on the shelves without washing them. Who said that it is the duty of the ultimate consumer to go home and wash the item before they use it? You're putting something out there on your shelf to be sold to the ultimate consumer. You're supposed to make sure that the items or the goods are in conditions ready for consumption, especially when you're selling grapes and those sort of stuff. It's not like you're taking chicken out the freezer and got to carry it to home and season it up and this, and you go out to buy the fruits. You might have little children with you. They might want grapes to eat in before you reach home. Why can't you give a child a few grapes from the container, the plastic bag that you have them in? And I'm talking about this, not just because of that, but I had a very good friend of mine who decided that he would be eating in a healthy fashion. So he was buying all these fruits and the juicing, only to find out sometime later that he was passing a lot of blood in his urine, and he couldn't understand what was going on. When samples were taken from him and were tested, the man's system full up of pesticide, filled with pesticide. I mean, what do you do? You know, certain items people would want to use instantaneously, but yet you're putting them on the shelf filled with chemicals. Filled with chemicals. You know, some people would tell you wash them with vinegar. Wash them thoroughly with vinegar. Rinse them off, put them in your fridge, get ready. So you walk with the vinegar in your pocket, wash them off in the supermarket, and then get the children them to eat. People must be mindful that you can become sick when you're doing your dejuicing. Look at what you're dejuicing. See what they use to preserve them before you consume huge quantities, or before you consume any at all. The apples, them, they have wax on top of them. What is the physiological impact of the wax on the apples that we eat? Need education. Some people buy apple and they just take it, eat it like that, not realizing there's some wax on top of them. A lot of things they use to preserve food, whether in the tin or otherwise, they can cause us a lot of harm. You have things in the tins them like we were talking before, and a lot of them use sodium benzoate. Benzoate is a compound that contains the benzene ring, and that itself is carcinogenic. Just imagine that you're consuming tin stuff and used as a preservative is a benzoate derivative. Well, I don't know, but we need to start looking at what they have. Benzene is inside a benzoate. Benzene is C6H6. It has a ring structure. They have three double bonds, but then the double bonds them can move around. So instead of representing the structure with double bonds alternated, they give you a mobilized ring in the structure to show that the electrons them are moving around, and that is a more appropriate way to represent benzene. So we have to be mindful. They are carcinogenic. Be careful with what you're eating. Try to cook as much at home as possible. Try to make your fresh local drinks. The preservatives them could be a problem for us. When they used to use, and my heart goes out to those persons who work by gas stations. I think that they should be using respirators because you're inhaling the fumes from the gasoline on a regular basis. You could basically end up with bone cancer. When they used to have leaded gasoline, of course they phased out leaded gasoline. Why? Because through the exhaust, when you burn the gas, via the exhaust, you also got tetraethyl lead. That's a lead product coming through the exhaust. That lead used to interfere with the brains of young children. Messed up young people brain. That tetraethyl lead, meaning you got four ethyl groups and you have the lead in the center. That was dangerous. So throughout the world or the region, they work out that we have to get rid of leaded gasoline. You could look around, all of them make unleaded gasoline. But guess what? The unleaded gasoline now has a benzene ring inside of it. So we ran from the lead because it was causing damage to young people's brain, and we opted for unleaded gasoline, but the unleaded gasoline has in the benzene ring C6H6. And that benzene ring is carcinogenic, causes cancer. And that is why some persons with gas stations or something, they don't like to hear me talk about this, but I think people should be wearing respirators as long as they're working by a gas station. Inhalation of that fume is disastrous for the young gas attendants. We got to treat people fairly. And I wonder what the Labor Department, people like Genevieve Mills and those guys, doing about persons selling gas without respirators. Been going on for quite a while. Occupational safety. We have to start being fair to those brave soldiers who sacrifice their health to provide services at our pumps. We have to. And those who know better should do better. The profits that we are making, invest a little bit in better protecting your employees. We have to try in a more concerted fashion to do what we have to do. Well, we have, yeah, and that incident, that homicide that occurred yesterday, I would like to extend condolences to the family of that individual. I do not know the full story, but once a life was lost, we have to be sensitive to the situation and try and console those who are left to grieve. It's unfortunate, and we have to do what we have to do to better that particular aspect of our society. Every hand would have to be on deck. we have to see how best we can avoid altercation. Because at times we do not know what would transpire. Don't forget the Johari window. The Johari window indicates that a human being is consisted or comprised of four selves. You got the known self, the hidden self, the blind self, and the unknown self. That is the dangerous one. All of us, all of us have an unknown self. And that is, sometimes I listen to things with the ambassadors and the conduct or the behavior. But there's a part of all of us that we do not know. Philosophy will tell you that. So don't think that you could put people in rooms and do orientation and treat them as if you're dealing with chemical, acid, and alkali in a laboratory. You can't do that. You could go in a lab and tell a student must not add water to acid. Instead, you must add acid to water. But you can't take up human beings and practice every conceivable situation with them and say this is how you're supposed to behave. When there's a part of that human being that we do not know, and the human being himself or herself does not know. The unknown self is a very dangerous aspect of us. The only person who knows about it is that supreme being of which nothing greater can be perceived. How many times you have a friend, very, very, very close friend, who did something, say even murder somebody, and you telling people that I can't believe he did that, or I can't believe she did that. And then the same person who did it, in awe, in shock, that they did something like that. You know why? Because there's a part of us that we do not know. Neither our friends, associates, family members, nobody. Not even the individual himself knows that aspect of him. That is why you end up saying, I can't believe I did that. And your friends them saying, I can't believe he did that. Because the Johari window. You have the known self, the hidden self, the blind self, and the unknown self. The blind self is what people know about you that you don't know about yourself. The known self now is what you know about you and what you allow other people to know. The hidden self is what you know about you that you don't allow other people to know. You're secretive, you don't give away much. And then the unknown self is what neither you or anybody else knows about you. I can't believe she did that. I can't believe he did that. Me myself can't believe I did that. That's the unknown self. Only God knows that aspect of you. So we have to be a little bit more patient when we're creating perceptions of people, when we take to the airways and we start to pull down people. At the spur of the moment, people do not know sometimes how they would react. You did not put them in a lab and expose them to that particular situation or scenario and prepare them best for situations like those. Always remember, before you try to degrade somebody, call them and punish them. That is, I listen to many radio shows about the same ambassador situation, but none of them would have indicated that there's a part of us that we do not know. And had they done that, they'll be more merciful on the person. I'll stop there for tonight. And I wish you all the best in what remains of this Thursday.
The owners, advertisers, Broadcasters and Management Company of Sugar City